Aston Martin is dominating headlines with signing Adrain Newey, and combine that with Fernando Alonso, a world champion driver, and an engine from Honda, who Newey knows very well, the chances of success are, let's be honest, pretty much guaranteed. On top of that, they've also signed some of the top talent for their engineering team, making it clear they're serious about Lawrence Stroll's vision of becoming world champions. And now they're even eyeing Max Verstappen to join them once the new 2026 regulations kick in. Red Bull's current performance is dipping, and with Newey leaving, Verstappen moving to Aston Martin is starting to look like a real possibility. If Aston Martin performs well post 2026 and Alonso continues to deliver despite his age, he could stay longer with the team, chasing more championships and race wins. That would spell trouble for Lance Stroll though, as the team would likely have to make the tough decision to drop him. But does Lawrence Stroll really have the heart to drop his own son? After months of speculation following his confirmed exit from Red Bull Racing, Adrain Newey has finally signed a long-term deal with Aston Martin, further boosting an already impressive team lineup. The former Jordan Force India squad has undergone a massive transformation over the past 5 years. It all started when then driver Sergio Perez pushed the team into administration in 2018, and since then it's been an upward climb. Things even went a bit wild at the start of 2023, with the AMR 23 emerging as one of the fastest cars on the grid. Ever since Lawrence Stroll took over and rebranded the team as Racing Point before evolving it into Aston Martin for the 2021 season, he focused on improving everything at the Silverstone base. Now, with an exclusive engine deal with Honda starting in 2026 and Red Bull shifting towards its own engine production, the pieces really are starting to fall into place for Aston Martin. Stroll has invested hundreds of millions into the former Jordan factory, turning it into a futuristic tech hub with every facility imaginable for the team's staff. And with a state-of-the-art wind tunnel set to be operational before the 2025 F1 season, Stroll is just a few steps away from declaring his team the ultimate power in the F1 universe in true Star Wars fashion. Having the best equipment alone, though, doesn't make a team a world champion, so Lawrence Stroll has gone after the top talent to elevate Aston Martin into a real contender. One key move was securing Dan Fallows as technical director, snagging him from Red Bull shortly after the new ground effect regulations came into play. That decision helped the team make huge strides last year, pushing them into the mix before they eventually settled in the upper midfield, just behind F1's top 4 teams this season. But to break into the front-running pack, Aston Martin needs to attract the brightest minds in F1. While signing world champions like Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso as drivers were impressive moves, both were past their peak performance. With Alonso and Lance Stroll locked in for the future, turning attention to the best technical personnel was the next logical step. Aston Martin's growing facilities are finally reaching the point where their full potential can be unleashed. Over 20 years ago, Red Bull wasn't the powerhouse that it is today. Christian Horner, Danny Bahar and Dietrich Mateschitz lured Adrain Newey away from established teams like Williams and McLaren, where he'd built an exceptional reputation. At the time, Red Bull was seen as a bit of an underdog in the racing world, but with Newey on board, it didn't take long before the team's technical capabilities began to translate into victories, and soon after, championships. The rest, as they say, is history. Stroll finds himself in a position very similar to where Red Bull was 20 years ago. All the investment, upgrades and new facilities have been put in place, and now with someone like Adrain Newey on board, someone with an impeccable record, the last few weak spots can be identified and fixed. Newey's experience combined with Honda's top-tier power units could be exactly what Aston Martin needs to become a dominant force in F1. The fresh challenge might just be the final push Newey needs to create something special with the Silverstone team. For Newey, there's the added bonus that Stroll is clearly willing to spend big to achieve his goals. Stroll even made moves to lure more of Red Bull's top technical talent like Pierre Wash and Enrico Balbo, although although they chose to stay loyal to Christian Horner. With a state-of-the-art factory and wind tunnel at his fingertips and a new challenge ahead, it's hard to bet against Newey leading Aston Martin to build cars that aren't just hanging on to the competition, but outpacing everybody else. However, hiring Newey doesn't guarantee championships. His arrival will definitely bring vital knowledge and experience, giving Aston Martin the edge that it's been missing, but it also means the team will have no more excuses if they don't start delivering in the coming years. And in this context, the driver lineup remains a big question. As talented and relentless as Fernando Alonso is, he will be 45 when the new regulations come into play in 2026. So can he really continue to push the limits and compete against much younger drivers while aiming to break the record for the longest gap between titles? History suggests that might be a bit too much to ask. Lance Stroll, meanwhile, has shown himself to be a reliable midfield driver and has closed the gap on Alonso compared to last year, but he's never really displayed that flash of brilliance that defines the sport's elite, something Alonso has done time and time again. It's hard to imagine Stroll standing up to drivers like Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc in a head-to-head battle. That said, Newey's arrival completely changes the attractiveness of the Aston Martin project. While Alonso and Sebastian Vettel joined the team for what could be considered a comfortable end-of-career move, Aston Martin now offers a much more compelling opportunity. With Newey in the mix, it's suddenly a much more appealing prospect for any driver eyeing a fresh start and a shot at future championships. Could someone like Max Verstappen be the next big signing for Aston Martin? There's been plenty of talk about his relationship with Red Bull this year, especially after tensions arose between his father, who plays a key role in his management team, and team boss Christian Horner. While things have been patched up to maintain peace, the once rock-solid connection between Max and the team doesn't seem as unbreakable as it used to be, even if the rumours of exit clauses in his contract have been brushed aside for now. Verstappen is under contract until 2028, but he's been very vocal about being closer to the end of his F1 career than the beginning. He's mentioned that his future in the sport hinges on how appealing the new regulations are to him. It's not out of the question that his contract might include performance-related clauses, which could give him an out if Red Bull can't deliver a car that meets certain standards. If Verstappen does choose to leave Red Bull either before or at the end of his contract, Aston Martin could very well be his next stop. Give Newey a few years to reshape Aston Martin's trajectory, wait for Alonso to step aside or retire, and Verstappen could seamlessly transition to reunite with the Newey-Honda combination that's brought him so much success in recent years. The path almost seems to pave itself. The real question is whether Lawrence Stroll would be willing to bench his own son Lance to bring Verstappen on board, especially if Max somehow became available for the 2026 season. That would certainly make things interesting, but with Stroll's ambition to turn Aston Martin into a championship-winning team, it might just be a sacrifice he's willing to make. It's also worth noting that Adrain Newey didn't just sign a contract, he got a stake in Aston Martin as part of the deal, which means Lawrence Stroll will no longer have complete control over the team, and that could complicate his ability to protect his son's seat. Newey, who's always been about working with the very best and pushing for the fastest, most precise drivers, isn't likely to make exceptions for anyone, even if that person happens to be the team owner's son. This puts Lance Stroll in a difficult position. If he stays on in the team and wants to compete alongside the elite of the sport, he'll need to start delivering real results and fast. The clock is ticking for him, and under Newey's watch, there won't be much room for error. Lance will have to prove that he deserves his place in the team or risk being overshadowed by drivers who can bring the kind of performance Newey demands. I wonder if we will see Aston Martin as champions soon, but I do find it hard to imagine that Lance Stroll will be part of that, as he's not as bad as everyone makes him out to be, but for sure he's not champion material. What do you think? Will Lance be replaced sooner rather than later? Let us know in the comments below, and check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.